where's the partner in here? Where is the coupleship? This is great, really important addict work and understanding compulsive behaviors, understanding what to do differently. Where is the partner being represented or even thought about?
If betrayal trauma has touched your life, you're not alone and healing is possible. This is Betrayal Recovery Radio, the official podcast of the Association of Partners of Sex Addict Trauma Specialists. I'm Dr. Jake Porter, and each week we explore the science, soul, and stories of transformation after betrayal. This podcast is for betrayed partners, for those who've caused harm, and for the professionals walking with them through the healing. Because even in the ashes of betrayal, something beautiful, something strong, something triumphant can rise. Well, hello, Jeanne and Tim. Welcome back to Betrayal Recovery Radio. So glad to have you. Yes. And we're here to talk about y'all's exciting new release, your book, Finding the Way Through. Let's just start with this. Why write this book? Share a little bit maybe about your backgrounds individually, and then also what made you decide we're going to do this. We're going to take on this project.
You want to go first, Tim?
Yeah, I'll go.
Yeah, go for it.
Then, like a 18-year project.
That all? Man, work of this. You made quick work of it.
So back in the day when I first started doing sex addiction work, I eventually very quickly got to the point where I had so many clients who were wanting to come in and do the work. I didn't have space to work with them individually. So I started running groups. And very quickly I realized using Facing the Shadow, which is sort of like the standard workbook that's been out there forever. And I love it, but it doesn't lend itself very well to a weekly group. You have to do some modification with the homework and how we approach the material to massage it into a weekly group. So I very quickly started tweaking the curriculum that I was doing. That eventually became writing up a group manual to go along with Facing the Shadow that pulled out the parts I wanted to do, which then became writing up the different homework if I wanted to approach it slightly differently. And that went through evolution after evolution. And then Jeanne and I started collaborating on it, which created more sort of variations. And eventually, when we were on version 13, we said, I think it's time to do something different with this. And so we took it and then we actually completely revamped it again in making it this. But really, it came out of this is what we've been doing with our addicts forever. This is how we have been incorporating partner sensitivity into the addict group work, for almost the entirety of Willow Tree's existence. And if we were going to take this and make it something that was more than just sort of like our reference group manual, make it more of a workbook, what would we want to have in that? And so we spent the last 2.5 years looking at what we had, adding the content the way we wanted to have it, sort of revisiting some of the exercises we put in there. And what, Jeanne and I think both have such appreciation about, really thinking about, well, what's the partner sensitivity stuff that we don't want to just incorporate sort of like, with subtle messages here and there, but what's the partner sensitivity stuff that we actively want to educate about? Wow. And so we've got like partner sensitivity pieces in there. And then we've also included addict stories that talk about the addict struggles and processes at different stages, but also highlight how that partner sensitivity shows up differently at different points in recovery. So, 15-year process, just
around the corner.
Yeah.
I wanted to add that when Tim was working on the manual and the ones that he was running, and he and I started to work together, I would say, where's the partner in here? Where is the coupleship? This is great, really important addict work and understanding compulsive behaviors, understanding what to do differently. Where is the partner being represented or even thought about? And so that was another flow of evolution of additions in our manuals over the years. And then again, like Tim said, it got to be a point of, hey, instead of us continuing to tinker, why don't we do our own the way we really want to do it and really represent quality addiction, sobriety, recovery work and really speak about the betrayed's voice and what they may be interested in talking about or wanting to know about. How can we really represent the whole system
Right.
while doing strong work?
Right.
That that was a motivator. Yes, 2.5 years, occasional Fridays, um, working on this thing in addition to all the other things we do.
Yeah, which is a lot. I know you both do a whole lot. So it must be a labor of love to have found time in y'all's schedules. And just listening to y'all talk about the development of this, it makes me think about something that I often say when I'm doing teaching or training with, other professionals, which is research shows that often, not all the time. So I know I'm going to be speaking, painting a broad brush here. So no one get mad at me. But often when you're doing individual therapy,
Yeah.
the paradigm is relieving the suffering of the one person in front of you,
Mhm.
right? And I started out working with guys running, facing the shadow groups, doing all of that stuff too. And that was very much my thinking. And then when I started working with couples, it was like, hey, sometimes what initially looks like the answer to relieving the suffering right in front of me um, isn't the whole picture.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you are trying to create something that people, as they're doing their individual work, they're having a little broader view of what recovery and healing can entail, not just for them, but those connected to them.
One of the things that we have talked about our program as being here at Willow Tree, um, as we talked about our program being a partner-sensitive addict program,
Mm.
and that has been so essential because it I can bring guys in and I can help them get sober and I can help them find recovery and all that kind of stuff. But if it's not leaning into the relationship and that's getting sacrificed in the process, you know, I'm not gonna sacrifice everything for the relationship. But let's not sacrifice the relationship because we're not talking about it, you know?
There you go. Yeah.
And on the partner side, partners often automatically get more involved in what's the addict doing, what's their program, what's it going to look like, what do they need to do because they're very invested in that. But there's also a partner, like we talk about our program being an addict sensitive partner program. And on the partner side, there's a piece about, well, can I understand the addict struggles and those kind of things? And so from the very beginning, we have really worked, like Jeannie has this beautiful analogy that you can ask her about and she'll tell you more about, but the fence. And so we have
Mm,
really spent a lot of time about how do we help people come to the fence so they're
mm,
doing their own work, but they're understanding what the other person is doing and can't take responsibility for it, but can support it.
mm. Tell us about the fence,
Yeah.
Jeannie.
This goes back to the old AA world, which SAA adopted, which was stay on their side of the street.
Hmm.
And so when I came into this work, 16 odd years ago, and having tons and tons of trauma experience, I'm like, what is this stay on side of the street thing? How can two people in a relationship who aren't sure what they want to do with this relationship, but how can they be across the street from each other, walking their own path? This feels too far. And so I think a lot in pictures. I teach a lot in pictures. And so my image that was always on my mind was this 4-foot fence. And one person in the relationship has their own yard, gets to decorate it, have their own sense of self. And then there's a little 4-foot fence. And then the other person has their yard and gets to decorate it with however lounge chairs, barbecues, flowers, whatever. But it's how do you come to the fence, not jump over the fence, but
Mm,
stay on your own differentiated side and say, this is important to me. This is what I'm asking for. These are my thoughts and opinions.
mm.
Um, and so bringing them together, but still separate selves.
Right.
And I think that was really important for betrayed partners. They would say, don't I have a voice in this? Absolutely. You have an opinion and thoughts and needs and can make requests. So this is the coming to the fence, which by the way is in the book too.
Yeah.
How do we bring people together? Because the betrayed path of healing is so different than addiction recovery work. They're so
Right.
different. And so in our book, we're trying to have fluency to teach both about the other's path. And
Wow.
if you know more, you do better kind of a thing. Know
So
more.
with our book, I think about our book as And, and when I say I think about, I just now decided that I think about it this way.
At this moment, this is
At
how
this
you're going to think
moment,
about it.
you
And this
need
is
to.
how I'm thinking about it. Yes. Um, I think about our book as it's a manual to help the addict figure out how to get their yard set up, working, functioning, not dying, and sort of all that stuff. And also an educational manual about what's going on in the partner's yard and what sort of are the partners taking advantage of and not jumping over the fence, but also not ignoring that what they're doing in their yard might influence that. And so it's this
Yeah.
manual that's like, yard maintenance and yard respect.
This yard fence thing is really resonating with me because just a couple months ago, our neighbor had a tree
Yes,
and a branch came down
yes,
and hit our fence,
yes.
damaged the fence, because partially in our yard, and there was a
How do we deal with
whole,
this?
yes, a whole exchange around that.
Yes,
And so,
yes.
yeah, that really works. Really
Yeah.
works.
Works, and it really helps people. A lot of the things that are in the book, especially the partner sensitive piece, but actually all of it, the addiction work too, are things that we have said and teach over and over and over that have really resonated with so many clients over the years.
Mm.
And so that was another piece of like, if this is really making a connection to a lot of people, how can we put this in the hands of anybody, whether they work with Jeannie and Tim and Willow Tree Counseling or not? And
Wow.
so the fence is one of those. I mean, the fence in our mind has been around for 10 years, but it
Yeah.
constantly makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way you both described the development of the book. One of the side gigs that I get to be a part of is teaching in a doctoral program, and I help people with their research. And one of the forms of research, methods of research, is something called action research. And action
Mhm.
research is where you develop like a curriculum or an intervention or something, and you're testing it right in real time and revising and testing in real time. And it is one of the best, like legit methods of research in developing something that we can know to be effective. And essentially, that's what it sounds like y'all did here
Yeah.
with this.
Exactly right. Over time, because we
Yeah,
tested and tinkered. And we
yeah,
have the clients, tell us this is really helping. This is really helping me strengthen my sobriety. This is really helping me understand
mm,
what's going on for my betrayed partner.
yeah,
One of the things that came out of this that surprised us is that a number of partners ended up reading the book. And I was not expecting partners to pick it up. That it hadn't dawned on me. And then to hear them say, I have found it so helpful to read this,
mm,
to
wow,
sort of like read through not just sort of the partner sensitivity pieces, which are reinforcing their own experiences and how their partner can be supportive of them, but reading through what the addict process was and what the challenges were going to be and what the pitfalls were going to be and what some of the solutions might look like and what sort of the typical struggles that the addict might have, and that the partners really found reading this book beneficial to them in their own ability to sort of like have their own boundaries, to be understanding and appreciative, and sort of have some clarity about what the addict's recovery process was going to look like, and that how sort of reassuring and in some ways calming that was for them.
mm,
It was something that maybe Jeannie expected it, but I did not.
I wasn't terribly surprised by that, but it's interesting. The part I was surprised by is that couples are using this as part of their check-in or part of their.
wow,
They will read the partner sensitivity sections, and what I'm finding is that the betrayer, the one who struggles, like, this gives words to what I want to ask about my betrayed partner's experience, but I wasn't sure how to say it, and it was
yeah,
great to be the one to initiate it. And then betrayed partner experiencing, this really makes sense to me, or this part, no, actually that doesn't match me. That's okay. But it's facilitating a lot of validation that the 2 of them are
yeah.
working together. I did not expect them, like couples, to be using these parts of the books as, furthering their emotional intimacy.
That is really exciting. And one of the things I try to do on the show here is make it real practical. So, and y'all may answer me and just say, well, order it from Amazon, start from page one and read through. But like, let's start with just a betrayed partner who's thinking, okay, I've really struggled understanding my partner's addiction or whatever. Um, like, how would you coach that partner to use this book to that end? Are there any specifics you would say or any guidance you'd give in that process?
Mhm.
Okay, again, I'm going to say in this particular moment what I have decided.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think as I think about it, what I would start with is I would say we've got in every chapter a section called addict stories.
Mm,
And I would encourage the partner to first off just read just read the addict stories in order through the book.
Mhm.
Because they start with addicts who are fresh coming in, just realizing that there's a problem in like first 0 to 6 months of trying to figure it out. And then they can progress into that 6 to 18 month period and then later recovery. And also in those stories, we highlight typical struggles that addicts have with sobriety as well as typical struggles that they have with relationship and partner sensitivity. And we also highlight sort of the solutions and using tools and using their community to support them. And if
mm,
you just read through those addict stories in order, you'll get sort of an overall picture of what does recovery look like, warts and all, as
mm.
it moves forward into something that's much more successful. And then once you've got that picture, then go back and start reading the chapters for more like program information, more partner sensitivity information. But I think that those addict stories, paint a larger journey and give you the arc of what that journey looks like.
Yeah, okay, that's awesome. Jeannie,
Jeannie,
anything you'd add?
Yeah, no, I was like, "Okay, go back and say your question again for me, Jake, because I got lost in some other thoughts in listening to Tim."
Sure. Yeah. So let's say a listener, a betrayed partner is thinking, oh, that sounds like that could be really helpful. I've struggled to understand my
Yeah,
partner's addiction. And
yeah.
so maybe this partner's thinking, I'm going to do it. I'm going to order this book. How would you coach them to read it? Would you give them tips, warnings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would I encourage them to read it? I would start at the beginning and I
Yeah.
in reading it through because each chapter hits a very different part of sobriety. The first half of the book, I would say, is very sobriety focused.
Mm,
The latter part of the book is much more recovery focused. And the way we define that is living differently.
yeah.
So taking understanding, learning about your emotions. How is anger connected to your addiction or not? And there's pieces of it, this book, the different chapters that I think a lot of betrayed partners want to know and understand, but it's so
Right.
hard when it's your loved one and it's your story.
Mm,
That's really hard.
yes.
So when you're reading a book like this, I think it offers a bit of a buffer. I can learn about the material and then decide what's right for me. So
Yeah.
I would say chronologically, actually. And there's so many, how do I say, it offers a lot of choice
Mhm.
and diversity. We are very clear that not one way is everybody's way. So here's suggestions. Now, what works for you? What works for your
Hmm.
coupleship? So I think
Yeah.
the book also gives a lot of space to have your own experience.
Wow. I want to kind of go backwards in our conversation a little bit. And we talked around this some, but I think it would be really important for us to just address this head on.
Okay.
Why is it so important that an addict's recovery process, if that person is partnered and desires to remain so, why is it so essential that, I mean, you're saying from the beginning, while you're working on sobriety, that you're already also thinking about the experience of that betrayed partner?
Why is that so important?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's only important if you want to stay in the relationship.
But Tim, I got to work on me. I have to go heal myself first so
Yeah.
that I can come and be a better person for you.
And we
That's
would say that is true. That is true. That, we got a addict struggling needs to work on self, figure self out,
Mhm.
but to do so with blinders on, with a very narrow view, is not the kind of recovery we're looking for. So yes, you must find ways to help self, and at the same time be knowledgeable and aware that, hey buddy, when you walk through a china shop and you just go running through, stuff's going to get broken. And so how do you be mindful that there are other people with impacts?
Mm,
I don't think it needs to be this unilateral one road.
Yeah.
I think two people can be on that road. I think you can walk numerous paths a little at a time the whole way. Um, into couples therapy, being very careful about how do you show up. But if you have more awareness of the other person's experience and the impact, your couples therapy sessions are also going to go much better. So I
yeah.
think it's important for relational healing to understand the other. Addict,
And
addict.
and I was a little tongue in cheek there, but absolutely, from the beginning, from an addict perspective, you know, what we know is that sobriety and recovery work is, there's a lot of I need to figure myself out. But addicts, when they're in their addiction, typically have a lot of self-centeredness. That may not be who they are across the board, but when their addict comes on board and when they're, going down the path to act out, they may be thinking about other people, but that's usually more of a fleeting thought.
Mhm.
Mm,
It's not enough that it's going to hold them back when their addict is taken over. And so
right.
there's an aspect of their sobriety and recovery work that is leaning into empathy, that's
Mm,
leaning into connection, that's leaning into sort of holding on to the impact that their behaviors, their choices are having on other people, and pushing through that denial mechanism that's so powerful in addiction
yes.
into sort of that acceptance of I can't control the impact that my behavior is going to have on other people, so I can start to think about them and I can do my best and I can hold my boundaries, but I'm not going to go willy-nilly through this anymore. And when you incorporate partner sensitivity into the sobriety and recovery work from the beginning, if someone's in a relationship, and even if they're not, if they've just been in other places, what we're doing at a sense on the addict side is we're from the very beginning starting to build up those empathy muscles. We're
Yes.
starting to build up those muscles that allow them to more consistently, and I'm going to say that because I think that's important, because it's not that addicts in their addiction don't connect with people. The problem is that it's not consistent typically, because when they're addict, their trauma takes over. When all that stuff happens, the connection muscles just fall away. And so by incorporating partner sensitivity in from the beginning, we're bringing in those empathy practices, those connection practices, that how to be relational with other people, whether that's your partner, whether that's a recovery peer, whether that's a family friend or somebody who's a personal friend that's been a support to you, the other people that are looking to you to be a support to them. All of those relational connection empathy pieces start to get built from the very beginning, and
Mm,
able to use partner sensitivity as an easy access point to work on that.
yeah.
I would also say that partner sensitivity strengthens a person's foundational sobriety and therefore recovery. And I will say this in this way of, because if you're learning about others, you're actually expanding those blinders. So you're learning about impact to others. And like Tim saying, you're increasing the practice opportunity for the building blocks of empathy. When someone who's struggling with intimacy and emotional sharing gets to practice at that and learn about it, they tend to feel better about themselves. A little bit of pride, a little bit of esteem starts to grow. And so what does that do? Well, what that does, we know, is that broadens your window of tolerance. So now we have actually a positive feedback loop, that if
Yes.
you can understand what's going on and not perfectly, not all the time, but sometimes be able to communicate about that in a different way, and that's having a positive impact. I don't mean everything's great, but a positive impact in the relationship. you're going to feel a bit better about yourself,
Mm.
which then strengthens your resolve, your motivation to continue in this path of recovery. So I think it's a positive feedback loop. Start it at the beginning, keep on going, and it's going to feed and strengthen. And so that's the, it doesn't weaken the addiction
Right.
sobriety recovery work, it strengthens it.
I
So
agree.
one other piece on why I think that this is important, and I'm not going to go into the research
I
because
can
we're not
talk
going
a lot about this, Jake.
That's okay. It's good. It's why you're here.
You get passionate.
if people want to know on the research, they can find this. But I'm just going to make this statement that research suggests that our self-determination and our ability to have stamina to stick with something is finite. And so if somebody is mentally having to use their own self-will to white knuckle, to not react, to hold on to something, that they might get through that challenge, but when the next challenge comes along, they're not going to have as much stamina and they're not going to be able to hang on the way they were before. When an addict is in a relationship, if they are not figuring out partner sensitivity, what's their default? Their default is typically, what's going on with that person? Why are they so upset? And where does their stamina go to? Their stamina goes to, I'm not reacting, I'm not reacting, I'm not reacting. I just need to
Hmm.
fix it. This is what I'm not reacting. When addicts are doing the partner sensitivity work, they don't have to go into that stamina mode because instead of being not reacting, they're learning to lean into, okay, that wasn't very kind, that wasn't very nice, but I understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand what's going on. Oh, I don't agree, but man, that must have been really hard for them. And then instead of being I'm not reacting and sort of having that stamina to hold that boundary, it becomes a leaning in and understanding, which is a very different process and it's much more sustainable. And so
Mm.
it allows them to have more energy to hold the boundaries around their sobriety and their recovery work when they need to. And it also creates a more sustainable dynamic within the relationship, even when they're not seeing eye to eye with each other.
Yes. Yes. Listening to both of you answer that, I'm reminded of a story. Frequent listeners have probably heard this before, but it was early in my own recovery when I was part of a men's group, 2 hours, 1 weeknight one night a week. And there's this one guy, we'll call him Jim. Okay. And Jim, and our therapist that was facilitating, I mean, this was way back, like hardly anyone knew about partner trauma at this time.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is like '09, something somewhere around there. Okay. So our therapist though knew something, had some intuition about it because this one guy, Jim, we'll call him, he every week was, oh, he's sober and everything, but his wife, but his wife, but his wife, but his wife. And she wants me this, and I can't say that, and all of this kind of stuff. And he said, and I'm trying to do all this stuff for her, but I mean, what is in it for me? And my therapist, she had this not older woman, she'd kill me if I knew that, but like, she was probably, I don't know. I'm not even gonna say what I was older, but this long ponytail, and her head whipped around, and that ponytail swashed all the air in the room swirled. And she said, "You get to become a better man."
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was a key moment in my recovery.
Mhm.
Like, oh, oh yeah.
Mhm.
Right, not just stay sober, not
Mhm.
just have some 12-step friends and do this 12-step thing and do it well, excel at it, but, like, be that different guy out there.
Live
Yeah,
Well,
differently. Live
yeah,
differently. And
and
that's
let's piggyback on that, which is what I think is so important. You can use the book that we wrote individually.
mhm,
I really hope that there's a lot of therapists out there that are using this book as a group curriculum
mm,
because we have been running groups, you know, since day 1.5
yeah, okay,
of Willow Tree. Uh,
yeah,
and we find it to be so integral exactly because of what you're talking about. You
yeah,
know, people get so much out of the group, not because they brought the topic, but because it's going on in somebody else's life, and yet that issue becomes a significant turning point in their own stuff. And with with finding the way through, um, again, we put all this partner sensitivity stuff into it, which just becomes this great, this great fertile ground that brings up some of these questions and conversations and frustrations and challenges, which if you bring it to the group and now the group is talking about it, I may not have brought that to the group, but like you just experienced,
Yeah.
that might be a significant turning point for me in my own process.
Right.
Yes.
One thing I want to add about the book, which we made a very important, significant, focused effort on, is there are not he's and she's in this book.
Mm.
It is non-gender specific. In our addict stories, there are all different kinds of folks from all different kinds of places with all different kinds of relationships, because we really wanted it to not be put in a certain kind of place, a certain kind of shelf. And
Right.
so you will not find a he or a she. You
Mm.
will find all theys and thems, because again, we really wanted it to speak to all betrayed and all addicted in whatever kind of situation they were in. And so I hope that that makes it accessible. I think about
And
betrayed
I
partners, they pick
yes.
up the books and it's a lot of she's and hers and she's, and he's thinking, where am I? And the effort it takes to convert the he to the she as
That's
he
right.
is trying to get some healing. So we made a very strong effort to just really be inclusive to all.
That's great. Not a week goes by that I don't get an email from whether it's a male betrayed partner or a female sex addict.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Where's the resource? Where are the resources for me? And I'm so grateful that we're starting to get more and more
right.
accessible material out there and glad that y'all are
Mhm.
doing that as well. So I may be putting you on the spot a little bit with this question. It wasn't
Good.
on the official list.
Do it.
But in the book, you have 40 recovery traits, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Can you give us a sneak peek of a couple of them?
Oh, I have the book right
I was thinking maybe you might have a copy at your fingertips.
now. I do. Let me get those. Page 329.
Uh-huh.
Now, to let the listeners know, you don't have to go to page 329 to get that, but they're included along the way in every chapter. So every chapter, we highlight two of those recovery traits. Here's one that a lot of folks understand and like: admit mistakes.
Oh. I'm thinking about Tim right before we started recording.
Yeah. Shabba-doo. Individuals with solid recovery do not hide mistakes nor pretend their mistakes did not happen. They
Mhm.
acknowledge their mistakes openly and honestly, and they recognize they can learn from their mistakes. So there's one for you.
There you go.
Yep. Thank
And
God.
just
You
so
want
people aren't
another?
making stuff up about Tim, he just forgot that he had a mute button, and having some sound issues. That's all. I just
And he
don't want people's minds running
Uh,
wild about
right,
whatever
right, right.
mistake it was.
Couldn't find
but
out, couldn't figure
but
out, couldn't hear us on the
embarrassing. But at the same time, I mean, this is the stuff. It's like, because of,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a small stupid thing, and I could say nothing. But at the same time, this is the path I walk.
yeah.
So
And
It's so good.
here's another one, because again, I do a lot of work with folks on sexual reintegration and sexual
Mm,
healing in addiction. So here's another recovery trait: seek healthy sexuality. Individuals with solid recovery seek, create, and maintain healthy sexuality. They use their program if they become obsessed or preoccupied with sex. They use their program when they shun or avoid sex. They recognize that engaging or not engaging in a sexual behavior is a choice for all involved.
mm,
It's not their choice alone.
you
that's
know,
good.
I really like the 40 recovery traits. And just to say, they're not. It's not like some exhaustive list. It's not like there are only 40. There are not 41.
Yeah, that's right.
That is not the case.
Right.
But where this list came from was, I wrote a daily meditation book for
Mm,
men and women who are in recovery from sex and porn addiction, many years ago.
yeah.
And out of that book, I went through as I was sitting with stuff like, well, what are the traits that we use in recovery? And I had found some other places, and I liked them, and I pulled those in. And then I started looking at, well, what were the constant themes that I found myself writing about in this meditation book? And when I sort of culled all those together and filtered them out and sort of brought them down to sort of like their essences, I ended up with these 40. And so it's not that, all like I said, it's not that this is it. This is a comprehensive list that I came up with, that Jeannie helped me to sort of like fine tune. And I think it's a good sort of foundation to start from. But thinking about recovery traits, which is really in some ways like, what are the things that I value? What are the principles I follow? What are the things that I do even when I don't want to do it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something cool about the number 40 that y'all
Okay.
Oh,
probably know? But so the number 40 represents a time of trial that ends in wholeness and healing.
Oh,
Did you know that?
I
I
did
did
not know
not,
that.
but I
Yeah.
think we just created a nice little quote there that I
There
want.
you go.
That's
Yeah.
lovely. That's
Yeah.
lovely. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 40 days and 40 nights of
Yeah.
rain, there's all kinds of different cultures and
That
everything. The
makes
number
sense.
40.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
serendipitous.
How about that? I don't
Yeah.
believe in coincidences. Um, so, let me ask you this also about the book itself. How is it actually structured? So I know you're hoping that, and I'm sure many will like be doing this group or in a group with a therapist or whatever. But if someone's just ordering it, like what are they getting into? Is it like sit down for 40 days and do this? How's it structured? How would you see someone leveraging this?
Sure. Sure. So no, it's not that way. Yes, we would love for people to use it in groups. And we were very, very specific and mindful of, so if I'm at my bookstore and I want to pull this off the shelf, how am I? We called the person Joe. How would Joe use this?
Hmm.
And so the way the book is organized is each chapter has a different topic, which of course branches out into numerous pieces. So there's an educational component, and then there's some exploration of that information, some workbook style, writing, circling, thinking, drawing, even.
Oh, cool.
Okay. And then we've got our partner sensitivity section. Now, some of the partner sensitive focus is exactly that chapter, especially like healthy sex and sexuality impacts, for example. And some are not an exact match. And then next comes the addict stories, which again represents the material in their progression. And then we've got those recovery traits. Now, the last part, the last page is basically each time. So now you just did this chapter. What are your takeaways?
Mm,
What are you going to share with whomever you're working recovery with, sobriety work? That could be your group share. You bring it to group. It could be with a sponsor. It could be with a loved one. It could be with a coach. Who are you? Because we really encourage folks, don't be in isolation when you do this work. That accidentally feeds the secrets and betrayal. So
right.
how do you be in community with this? But what are your takeaways? What are your questions? And go talk to somebody about it. And so
Yeah.
every chapter has that encouragement to bring in more community, safe
That's good.
community.
That's so good because we can't recover alone. Like I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's like 20, I should know this, but there's 25 or 26 chapters, one somewhere around there. So theoretically,
23.
is it 23?
23. I didn't know either.
He's counting the intro, the table of
We have a
contents,
lot
and
of
the
appendix.
appendix.
We have a lot of
Yeah.
appendix information.
So theoretically, you could sit down, and if you did like a chapter every other week, you could do this in a year.
Yeah.
Now, as we all know, you're not going to be cured ever, and you're
Oh,
not going to find this like fix that everything's going to be perfect just because you worked through our book in a year. It's going to give you the foundation. It's going to give you information. It's going to help you to understand things. But any workbook is not going to be like the fix in itself. The workbook is going to open up some things for you to explore with sponsors, with people in recovery, with
Right.
groups, with therapists, with, going and finding intensives. It's like, oh, I realize that I've got this emotional piece that I'm not really connected to, and I need to really do a deep dive into sort of connecting with my emotions. Or, I'm coming up against trauma that I hadn't realized I was carrying from my childhood, and it's time for me to really lean in and do that work. Or so you can do this in a year. I would actually, if somebody's working on it individually, I would rather have them. I don't want them to drag their feet. I don't want them to be like the classic 12-step guy who gets stuck on the fourth step for two and a
Right.
half years.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy.
You know
Or
that guy too?
I thought he was just in California, not
No.
Texas too.
Yeah, Texas too.
No, I mean, so, don't drag your feet, but at the same time, sit with this stuff. Let it percolate for a bit. Understand it. Talk with people about it. One of the concepts that Jeannie came up with that we've incorporated in the book, which again I love, is this idea of a wise counsel.
Mm,
Who are the people that are your go-to people that you're talking to about everything, that you're
yes.
asking for guidance, that you're asking for feedback, that you're making sure that your blind spots and your denial aren't getting in the way and that you're missing something. And by the way, spoiler alert, your partner is automatically a member of your wise counsel if your
Sir.
partner chooses to be.
Yes.
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 Yes. That's wise. There's some wise counsel right there about
Yeah.
the wise counsel. That's great. Well, this sounds like a really, really amazing resource. What else are y'all working on? Any more upcoming projects or resources coming our way?
Not necessarily. We're working on some trauma intensives,
Okay.
and we've been doing disclosures a long time, but the trauma intensives, we're really trying to teach others about partner sensitivity. And
Yeah.
so we've been speaking at a number of conferences and also in our local community. I mean,
Hmm.
so that's one thing Tim and I are strongly active in is how do we help the local clinical community, understand sex addiction, understand betrayal trauma, because it's in their room. We
Yeah.
recently were in San Francisco actually speaking to the Bay Area family law attorneys
Oh,
as they're
wow.
going through divorce. What does it look like? Because this is in your office. How can you be a helper and actually not
Yeah.
create more traumatic parts to this
Mm,
experience? So we're really advocating by educating in our communities.
that is huge. I don't know how you'll find the time to do it, but thank you. Yeah.
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 Yep. Thank
Have
you, Jake, so
very,
much for
very
having me.
understanding, spouses.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
That
Thank you to the spouses.
that's huge. That's
Yes,
huge. I'll thank mine as well because I want to
yes,
every chance I get. Well, that's
absolutely.
awesome. Excuse me.
Mhm.
So, I want to be mindful of everyone's time here. So let me ask this just kind of in closing. Words of encouragement for listeners. As you reflect on the work that you both put into this book and you're sending it out into the world, if you could pull out a little piece of hope, encouragement, wisdom to give to listeners, what would it be?
Mhm. Do you wanna
Yeah.
go first? Do you want me to go first,
You
Tim?
go.
Okay. Change is possible.
Mm,
Healing is possible. It is not quick and it is not easy. It is hard. And we work with people all the time who make major changes in their lives, become, I call it the 2.0 version,
mm,
and sometimes marriage 2.0 if they decide
mhm.
to keep the marriage. But whether we're talking about our healing partners or our recovery addicts, change is possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Yes. Tim?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the hope that I've got is that, like Jeannie said, change happens, and I think the piece to keep in mind, sort of like to hold on to, is that it's not gonna be a straight line.
Mm,
You know, Addicts are gonna have those steps backwards, they're gonna learn from them, and then they have the opportunity to move forward in a different way. Partners are gonna have their moments where their trauma comes up, and their reaction or their behavior isn't very kind, and they will learn from that, and they will heal from that, and they'll move forward. Finding the way
Finding the way
to
through.
lean in with each other in those
mm,
moments of challenge,
yes.
It is.
and when if you're lucky enough to have a partner who's automatically leaning in with you, not because it's always comfortable, but I've been in my own recovery for quite some time, and I'm always very grateful that my wife has been willing to stick with me and go through that with me. And I know our relationship is stronger and more solid than it's ever
Yes.
been. Um, and I don't wish addiction on anyone, but I wish recovery and the healing that comes with it everywhere
Yes.
it can go.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
I
Jeannie.
was just gonna say the book titled Finding the Way Through.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And we tell the story of how that title came to us in the book, but it really is, change is possible and finding the way through is possible.
that's great. Well, I believe it too. And thank you both for helping guide so many along that path. Appreciate you and the work you're doing. Thank you for coming on Betrayal Recovery Radio, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thanks for having us, Jake. Good to
you
see
did.
you.
Good to see you
Bye.
both. Bye bye.